Welcome back to Dave's Gone By, and I'm very proud to have in the neighborhood Cary Hoffman. We've been talking to him about Old Blue Eyes, the chairman of the board, Frank Sinatra, because Cary has been doing a show called My Sinatra, in which he impersonates and does an homage to Old Blue Eyes. And did you ever meet Frank?
Yes, I did, and I talk about it in my show, My Sinatra, which I'm doing at the Metropolitan Tuesday, July 10th, and then July 24th and August 7th. I talk about it. It's at the end of my show when I sing My Way. A young agent, many, many years ago. This is the second time that I've done Frank Sinatra's music. The first time I did it in my 20s, in the 1960s. Mm-hmm. I failed, as I should have failed, because there was a great Sinatra around at that time. And an agent saw me sing and said that he could introduce me to Frank Sinatra.
Wow.
I was amazed, and I had known the agent. He was a friend for years, and I said, "You never told me that you knew Frank Sinatra." He said, "Well, you never asked me."
Okay.
I said, "I have to ask you?" I'm totally obsessed about this man's music. He's literally my own personal god, and you have to ask me? He says, "Well, let's go down to this little bar that he hangs out called Jilly's, which was owned by his friend, Jilly Rizzo."
Yeah.
So we went down, and it was just crazy. They could hear the end of the story at Metropolitan.
Oh, that's so cruel, man.
Should I say the story? Should I actually do the whole thing? Well, I showed up. I was wearing a nice blue suit, and we stand outside of this bar, and I'm looking at the agent, and I'm saying, "What's next?" And he says, "Well, we'll go inside." And then just as we were about to go inside, I looked at the agent's face, and it looked like he had seen a ghost. His eyes were gazed at a spot beyond me.
Yeah.
And I turned around to where he was looking at, and there it is, 1966, Frank Sinatra, coming out of Jilly's with two of his mountainous men, bodyguards. And the next thing I know, the agent gently pushes me in my back towards Frank Sinatra. At that point, I knew one of two things was going to happen. I was going to be dead.
Right.
And the other thing I knew was that the agent was lying. He didn't know Frank Sinatra because he was pushing me into him.
Oh.
You know, agents sometimes don't tell the truth. I don't know if you know that.
No. You're kidding.
Just sometimes. So the next thing I know, 8 inches from Frank Sinatra's face, and all I remember is those giant blue eyes. Unbelievable. Eyes that were almost too big for his head. And
did you say anything? Did the agent say anything?
Well, the bodyguard started to push me aside.
Right.
Because I had been pushed into Sinatra, and the bodyguard started to push me aside. And then the agent did the right thing. He thought fast, and he said, "Mr. Sinatra, I want to introduce you to a singer by the name of Cary Hoffman." And that's when Sinatra's hand came out, and he stopped the guy. He pushed his bodyguard back, and there I was, standing head-to-head with Frank Sinatra. You know, in life, you're not really supposed to meet your heroes. They're supposed to be kind of an abstract thing.
Right.
So there I am, with Cary Hoffman and Frank Sinatra. And so Frank Sinatra then says, "What kind of singing do you do?" And I had lost all sense of who I was. I was so nervous and so jittery and so crazed that the only thing I could think of saying was "you." So he's asking me, "What kind of music do you do?" And I say "you." I would love to get those words back.
Actually, that's a lovely answer in a way.
Well, it's not the answer that he wanted.
Oh.
He doesn't want people impersonating him. He said to me, "No, I don't. I mean, what kind of songs do you sing? You can't be singing me. You have to be." And I said, "No, I meant your kind of songs, but it's really me singing and it's you. It's your voice, which I'm doing me in my version." And so he just stopped because he realized I was babbling.
Rambling, yeah.
Me, you, me.
And you have one of the bodyguards hit you in the back of the neck very hard.
Which, if you think about it, has been my problem for 30 years, not knowing what I'm doing in that voice. So Sinatra just said to me, "No, what kind of songs are you singing?" I said, "I'm singing the standards. He said, that's the answer that I wanted. He said, I wish you luck with it. If you sing the standards, that's the only way that this music will survive. It can't survive if you do me. Thank you very much, Mr. Sinatra. He asked me for a tape, or what they used to call in those days a demo record. And the agent took the address down, and he got in his limousine and drove away.
Well, all in all, I would say a very positive, a very good, and something obviously. Did you wash your hand for like 10 weeks? Or?
I did feel like I was anointed. And for Cary Hoffman to be singing the music of Frank Sinatra again after, that's over 40 years ago that happened. And
in a way, what's odd was he was wrong, because you, by doing him, are also keeping the music alive. I mean, it's being kept alive by other cabaret singers doing it in their way.
Correct.
But you're also bringing back the memories in your way.
Correct.
So
correct. I mean, I didn't plan to do it. I walked in one day to a nightclub, and there was a band playing, and I knew the band because I used to compose and produce advertising jingles. And some of the guys remembered how well I sing the music of Sinatra, and they had me get up, and the next thing you know, I got a public television special which aired in over 40 stations, and I played in about 30 performing arts centers all over the country. My next performing arts center is going to be in October in IMAC.
In Huntington,
which
right?
Is in Huntington, right.
By the way, but I can't let you skip past that little bit of information so quickly, though. You wrote advertising jingles?
Yep. It's the grand union of all good things.
Oh, you wrote that?
Grand union.
Oh, I love that. And any others from, like, our area?
How you doing, America? From the east to the west. Good to see you, America. Florida sends you her best. That was it for orange juice.
Kind of remember that one, yeah. And
beech nut peppermint, pep up with peppermint. A whole bunch of them. And I used to sing some of them in a kind of a Sinatra sound-alike voice when it was appropriate.
Right.
And so I walked into this jazz club years ago called the Red Blazer, and there was a band there, and that was the night that changed my life. That was the night that changed my life.
Wow. And I remember the Red Blazer. There was a Red Blazer and a Red Blazer 2.
Yeah, this one was on 37th Street.
Yeah.
And then the owner hired me. Every Thursday night, I would sing the music of Frank Sinatra under my show name, My Sinatra. And people started to come out of the woodwork, and then somebody from the public television station, WLIW, came down named Laura Savini, and she helped me get a special. And the special was seen all over the country, and that's how I got to play for the president of Singapore, and I'm going back to the Count Basie Theater in Red Bank, and the Metropolitan, which is the first one coming up now.
Can I ask, here's something that struck me, though. The Sinatra show is relatively recent, like 10 years? Or how long have you been doing...
I've been doing it for 7 years.
7 years. You already owned and operated Stand Up New York for 20 years, right?
Correct.
Why didn't you just do it at your own club?
Well, it's a comedy club. In New York City, with 15 comedy clubs and 25,000 restaurants, it's very hard to mix things. If we were in a small town, yes, I would have, taken one night a week and done Sinatra.
Right.
But the club, it's hard enough in Manhattan to build on one concept. To build on more, I just thought it would be confusing, And the club, I'm moving on from the club. The club is either going to close or I'm going to be selling the club to somebody else. But I can't do the Sinatra, and I also manage very successful television writers in Los Angeles, and I can't do all three things.
Can I ask a little bit more, though? I mean, it's kind of sad if Stand Up New York will be closing, because I won't say it's necessarily like this huge institution, but it's certainly, if you know comedy and if you've been in New York long enough, it's there. I mean, it's one of the benchmarks of the town.
Well, I agree. I mean, Chris Rock stops by all the time. Robin Williams comes by a few times a year.
Are you bored with it? I mean, are you just...
Well...
Or is it losing money now? Or?
I'm a little bored, but I'm very busy. Yeah. I'm very... In order to keep the Sinatra show moving, I constantly have to rewrite the show. I'm now in the process of rewriting the Sinatra show so that I can pitch it as an off-Broadway show about why people want to be somebody else, particularly me.
Oh, cool.
And how my obsession with somebody else possibly led to the distortion of my own talent.
Oh.
Because I became a songwriter in order to get away from the music of Sinatra when I was in my late 60s. After that meeting, sometime after that meeting, I started to write music much more with much more energy, and ultimately that's how I became a jingle writer. And then I wrote a sort of a successful off-Broadway musical in the mid-'70s called What's a Nice Country Like You Doing in a State Like This.
Oh, wow, okay, yeah.
And that was when I went on and moved away from the music of Sinatra and started to write my own stuff, so I'd have my own identity.
Because Sinatra basically told you, don't do me.
Correct. You're right.
I've just made this connection that, like, years of therapy wouldn't have... I'm so glad you've been on the show.
Oh,
I've helped you. You've had a breakthrough.
I think I owe you a lot of money, Dave.
Oh, yes, you absolutely do.
Dave, could you possibly call my therapist and say that we've worked it out by ourselves?
You got it. But please, just tell me a little bit more about Stand Up New York, because as someone who loves comedy as much as music, I really wanted to know how you started the club and how it got going and how you've maintained it over the years.
I had a club in Florida called the Funny Bone, and somebody came over to me, a guy named Stewie Morden, who's a successful real estate broker, and he told me that the Upper West Side of Manhattan was really burgeoning, and I should think about doing it there. So I flew up. We had a few meetings. It didn't work out, and I was going to go back, but then my wife and I decided to move back here. We're from here originally, and the next thing you know, I start to look around the neighborhood, and I find this old off-Broadway theater on 78th Street, and I went out and I raised money, and I was doing a comedy act at this club that I had in South Florida called the Funny Bone, and I was doing a kind of a musical parody, you know, about Sinatra, about everybody, about rock and roll, about anything. And so I was looking for a place to do it in New York. And the next thing you know, we opened up this club, Stand Up New York, and it became a success. It's just a little bit hard now.
Why
the rent is higher than it ever was before.
What's higher?
Yep, the rent.
Oh, the rent. Well, yeah.
And being on the Upper West Side of Manhattan on 78th and Broadway, I don't know if it's the right audience anymore. There's, you know, loads of people there who buy multi-million-dollar condos. And our audience used to be younger and, you know, less money.
Right.
So there's a lot of things. I mean, we still have great acts going on there, and that's exciting. And it's the reason why when I go to L.A., I know all these comics, you know, because of... But I have to tell you, it is weird how Stand Up New York has kind of merged with my Sinatra show, because a few months ago, Chris Rock comes in the comedy club. He walks over to me. He says, "Hi, Cary." I said, "Hi, Chris." He says, "Listen, Cary, I just want to tell you something. There's many things that I know for certain are true. There's a whole bunch of things I know that aren't true, or that I don't know. Here's one thing I know that I'm certain of. Cary Hoffman is not Frank Sinatra." So I said, "You know, Chris, you sound a lot like my mother. That's what my mother used to tell me. Cary Hoffman is not Frank Sinatra." He says, "Well," so then I looked at him, and I sort of started to fool around. I said, "Have you ever heard me? I don't have to hear you. You are not Frank Sinatra." And, you know, he was fooling around, but what he said really is the point of this off-Broadway musical that I'm writing. Well, nobody can be anybody else.
Do you have a timeline as far as when we might start to see workshops and
Well, actually, the Metropolitan date on July 10th and July 24th and August 7th, every other Tuesday, is kind of like a little bit of a nightclub direction of what the show will be. There's going to be a little bit more personal part at the end of it, where I actually sit down at the piano and play some of the songs that I've written.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
And so hopefully in a year or two, then it'll develop into something that you'll bring to off-Broadway, even while you're still doing My Sinatra in places like the Metropolitan Room, where people can see you July 10th, and when are the next two dates?
July 24th
and August
7th.
Everybody, go see Cary Hoffman in...
Should I give them the phone number of the club, or...
Sure.
212-206-0440, 212-206-0440, or they can go online, mysinatra.com. They can actually watch my whole public television special, which is on YouTube.
Oh, lovely. Just by going Cary Hoffman, right? By your name?
MySinatra.com, and they can get to YouTube like that.
Oh, and just in case we happen to have any, like, really rich people listening and they want to buy Stand Up New York, how much is it and how can they contact you?
Tell them to call me immediately. Immediately.
Is there a price range or something? Or
It's a few $100,000.
Okay. Under a mil, yeah.
But, they could actually email me at CSHM for management 99 at AOL.
CSHM?
Yes, CSHM for Mary 99 at AOL.
Well, Cary Hoffman, I hope obviously this whatever happens with Stand Up New York goes well for you, and especially also everything that you do with My Sinatra and with that music. And thanking you so much for taking this time to be in the neighborhood with us.
Thank you, Dave. I appreciate it. You're great.
Thank you.